Was I wrong for what I did? Tell me if you would have done the same thing. I'm still reeling from what happened, and honestly, I don't know if I regret it. But the look on their faces will be etched into my memory forever. My son, Daniel, and his wife, Sarah, showed up on my doorstep, suitcases in hand, expecting to move back in as if nothing had ever happened. They left not long after, completely defeated, crawling away with their tails between their legs, and I was the one who put them there. Let me take you back to the beginning, because to understand why I did what I did, you need to understand the history, the years of manipulation, the broken promises, and the absolute disrespect I endured. I'm a single mom. I raised Daniel on my own after his father passed away when Daniel was just a toddler. It wasn't easy, not by a long shot. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, just to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. Every penny I earned, every sacrifice I made, was for Daniel. I wanted him to have a better life than I did, to have opportunities I never had. And for a long time he was a good kid. He was respectful, studied hard, and we had a strong bond, or so I thought. Things started to change when he met Sarah in college. At first, she seemed sweet, a little quiet, but nice enough. I was happy for Daniel. He was in love, and she seemed to make him happy. They got engaged shortly after graduation, and I was thrilled, thinking I was gaining a daughter. Oh, how wrong I was. The red flags started appearing subtly. Sarah had a way of subtly undermining me, always making passive-aggressive comments about my house, my cooking, or my advice. Daniel, who used to confide everything in me, slowly started pulling away. He'd defend Sarah, even when she was clearly in the wrong, and I found myself walking on eggshells around my own son. Their wedding was beautiful, despite Sarah's insistence on a ridiculously expensive affair that I, naturally, ended up contributing a significant amount to, even though I was far from wealthy. I wanted my son to have a perfect day. After the wedding, they decided to move cross-country for Daniel's new job. It broke my heart, but I understood. Young couples need their space, and I genuinely wanted them to succeed. I helped them pack, bought them housewarming gifts, and even gave them a substantial sum of money as a down payment fund, hoping it would help them buy their first home. It was a substantial chunk of my savings, but I thought of it as an investment in their future, in our family's future. For the first year or so, things seemed okay. We'd video call occasionally, and they seemed happy. Then the calls became less frequent, and when they did call, it was always with a subtle plea for money. A new car, furniture, a vacation, it was always something. They never asked outright, of course. It was always couched in terms of "we're struggling a bit," or "things are tighter than we thought." And like a fool, I often sent what I could. I loved my son, and I believed they just needed a little help to get on their feet. Sarah, meanwhile, had stopped working after they moved, claiming she wanted to focus on building a home. So, Daniel was the sole earner, and apparently, his income wasn't enough for their lifestyle. The real turning point came 2 years ago. My father, Daniel's grandfather, passed away. He left me a small inheritance, not a huge fortune, but enough to comfortably live on and finally make some much-needed repairs to my house, maybe even take a small trip. Daniel and Sarah flew back for the funeral, and it was clear from the moment they arrived that they had an agenda. They were overly solicitous, showering me with affection that felt completely forced. Within days, Sarah started subtly pushing the idea that I should use my inheritance to buy them a house. "Mom, think of how much easier it would be for Daniel if he didn't have to worry about rent," she'd coo. Or, "You've worked so hard, you deserve to see your son settled in his own beautiful home." Daniel, for his part, remained largely silent, nodding along to whatever Sarah said, which hurt me deeply. He knew how much his grandfather meant to me and how precious that money was. I told them no, gently at first, explaining that I needed that money for my own future, for repairs, for my retirement. But they didn't take no for an answer. Their pleas turned into demands, then into accusations. Sarah accused me of being selfish, of not caring about my son's happiness. Daniel, my own son, actually told me I was being unreasonable and holding them back. The arguments became ugly. I remember one evening, Sarah screaming at me, saying I was holding onto my money out of spite, that I didn't want them to be successful. Daniel just sat there, letting her berate me. It was devastating. Eventually, I gave in, partially. I didn't buy them a house, but I gave them a substantial loan, a truly significant amount, promising them they'd pay it back monthly. I drew up a formal loan agreement, detailing the repayment schedule and terms. They signed it, promising to be diligent. I just wanted the fighting to stop. I wanted my son back. Guess what? They paid exactly 2 installments. 2, out of what was supposed to be years of payments. Every time I brought it up, it was an excuse. Things are tight. We had an unexpected expense. You're not going to make your son homeless, are you, Mom? Sarah was always the more aggressive one, but Daniel's silence was just as damning. He never once stood up for me. He never pushed her to honor their commitment. He just let me be the bad guy. This went on for a year. I stopped lending them money, of course, but the loan repayments just vanished. They stopped calling, too, unless they wanted something, which thankfully I started refusing. Our relationship, or what was left of it, became purely transactional. And then, about 6 months ago, I finally realized the full extent of their deception. I had mentioned to a distant relative that Daniel was struggling to pay back the loan I gave him for his house. The relative looked confused. Loan for a house? I thought they told everyone you bought them their house outright, as a gift, with your inheritance. My blood ran cold. They had been telling everyone, that I had just given them the money, that I was this generous, selfless mother who had bought her son a house. It was a lie, a calculated, cruel lie designed to make me look like the benevolent matriarch, while they enjoyed the fruits of my sacrifice without any intention of ever repaying me. I confronted Daniel about it, my voice shaking with anger and betrayal. He stammered, tried to deflect, blamed Sarah. "Mom, it was just easier that way," he mumbled. "People wouldn't understand alone." I hung up on him. That was the last straw. That was the moment I realized my son was completely gone, swallowed whole by Sarah's manipulation and his own weakness. I grieved the loss of my son that day, even though he was still alive. I knew then that I had to protect myself and what little respect I had left. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let it slide? Would you have demanded your money back, knowing it might destroy your relationship with your son? Or would you have gone a different route entirely? Fast forward to last week. I was enjoying a quiet Tuesday morning, drinking my coffee, when there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find Daniel and Sarah standing there, looking disheveled, with 4 large suitcases at their feet. My heart sank. "Mom, we need to talk," Daniel said, looking sheepish. Sarah, ever the performer, managed a watery smile. "We've had a bit of a setback, and we were hoping we could stay with you for a while." A setback, that's what they called it. Apparently, Daniel had lost his job a month ago, and without his income, they couldn't afford their apartment. They had been evicted, and their first thought, their only thought, was to come running back to the person they had so thoroughly exploited and disrespected. They walked past me, dragging their bags into my entryway as if they owned the place. Sarah was already surveying my living room, probably mentally redecorating it. I stood there watching them, and a calm, cold fury settled over me. This was it. This was my moment. "Get those bags out of my house," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. They both froze, turning to look at me, confusion etched on their faces. "What are you talking about, Mom?" Daniel asked. "We need a place to stay." "You need a place to stay," I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "And you think that place is here, in the house of the selfish mother who held you back and didn't want you to be successful." Sarah's face turned ashen. Daniel looked like a deer in headlights. "Mom, please." Daniel started. "We're desperate. We have nowhere else to go." "Oh, you have nowhere else to go," I challenged, stepping closer. "Tell me, where's that beautiful house I supposedly bought you with my inheritance? The one you've been telling everyone about for 2 years. Why aren't you going there?" They stood there, speechless. The color drained from Sarah's face, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. "Mom, that's not fair," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Not fair," I scoffed. "You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that you lied to everyone about my generosity while you defaulted on a substantial loan? Is it fair that you manipulated me, accused me of being a terrible mother, and then show up here expecting open arms and a free place to live?" I pointed to their suitcases. "You will remove those bags from my home, and you will leave. I will not have you under my roof." Daniel finally found his voice, a whiny, pleading tone. "But Mom, we're family. You can't just throw us out." "Family," I said, my voice rising. "When was the last time you acted like family, Daniel? When you let your wife slander me? When you broke every promise you ever made? When you refused to pay back the money you owed me, knowing it was my financial security?" I pulled out the original loan agreement, which I had kept in a file. "Do you remember this, Daniel? This is your signature, your promise, and you broke it." Sarah, who had been surprisingly quiet, suddenly burst into tears, a dramatic, wailing sob. "How can you be so cruel, Mrs. My last name? We have nothing. You're going to make your own son homeless." I met her gaze, my eyes probably as cold as ice. "I am not making anyone homeless, Sarah. You made yourselves homeless by your choices, by your financial irresponsibility, and by your blatant disrespect for me. As for the loan, consider it null and void, because I want absolutely nothing more to do with either of you financially. It's a small price to pay to be rid of your toxic presence." I opened the front door wide. "Now get out, and don't ever come back here. You are no longer welcome in my home, and frankly, you are no longer welcome in my life." They stared at me, truly seeing me for the first time, not as a cash cow or a doormat, but as a woman who had finally had enough. Daniel's shoulders slumped. Sarah's sobs dwindled into whimpers. Slowly, shamefaced, they started dragging their suitcases back out onto the porch. Each bag seemed heavier than the last, a symbol of their failed schemes. They couldn't even look me in the eye. They just kept their heads down, struggling with their luggage, looking utterly pathetic. They piled their bags by the curb, and then, without a word, they walked away, not even bothering to call a taxi. They just started walking down the street, 2 figures shrinking in the distance, their backs to me, carrying nothing but the consequences of their actions. They left crawling, metaphorically speaking, because they had absolutely nothing left, not even their pride. The house felt eerily quiet after they left. I sat down, my hands shaking, and a wave of exhaustion washed over me. I had done it. I had stood up for myself. The relief was immense, but it was tinged with sadness for the son I had lost. I still don't know if I did the right thing, if there was another way, but I couldn't let them walk all over me anymore. I couldn't allow myself to be taken advantage of again. So that's the end of that chapter. I suppose the moral of the story is to always protect yourself, even from the people you love most, when they show you repeatedly that they don't respect you. Love shouldn't be a license for exploitation. Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this, and please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.